This is Joe Biden. On July 20th, during a speech in Somerset, Massachusetts regarding climate change, Biden went off teleprompter.
Gina McCarthy, a former regulator in Massachusetts, was telling me on the way up how folks used to get a rag out and wipe the gunk off of their car's windshields in the morning just to be able to drive.
So the gunk that White House National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy was talking about was likely soot. But Biden took it a step further, saying that he too experienced pollution.
Not very much unlike where I grew up, in a place called Claymont, Delaware, which has more oil refineries than Houston, Texas had in its region, just across the line in Pennsylvania. And all the prevailing winds were our way. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? It had to put on their windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window.
So to recap, Biden claims that the prevailing winds blew oil from oil refineries onto his family's car windshield. And for some reason, this was only noticeable in the fall and winter? I mean, if that were true, certainly you'd see it all year round, right?
That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer.
So Joe Biden just said, and I quote, "That's why I and so many other damn people I grew up with have cancer."
That's why I have cancer.
And that was startling. The resident of the United States saying that he has cancer is a big deal. But of course, most people assumed, or at least hoped, that it was a gaffe. And the Republican National Committee was quick to seize on it by posting a tweet. Did Joe Biden just announce he has cancer? And the fact checker from the Washington Post, Glenn Kessler, responded by saying, "How dumb is this tweet? Check out Biden's medical report. Before he became president, he had non-melanoma skin cancers removed. Has no one at RNC Research ever had this common procedure?" The report Glenn Kessler is referring to does mention that previous skin cancers were removed and stated it is well established that Biden did spend a good deal of time in the sun in his youth. And that's true. Very well established.
And by the way, I sit on the stand and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun.
So two things. Biden said have cancer, not had cancer. Kessler is putting words into Biden's mouth, and he is so blindly partisan that he ignores the fact that the sun causes skin cancer and not oil that magically blows through the air. But great fact check, Glenn. You're doing God's work. Anyway, no, Biden doesn't have cancer, at least not that we know of. But this isn't the first time that Biden has told the oil slick on the windshield story. Here's Biden in October 2021.
We used to get up in the morning, not a joke, when I get driven to the little school I went up the street. Turn on the windshield wiper in the fall of the first frost, and literally be an oil slick in the window, not a joke, an oil slick in the window. That's why an awful lot of us, including me, have bronchial asthma.
So not only did the oil slick cause Biden's skin cancer, but it also gave him asthma. Got it. And that brings us back to Joe Biden's health summary. Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, writes that he currently treats Biden for 4 issues: non-valvular atrial fibrillation, hyperlipidemia, gastroesophageal reflux, and seasonal allergies. There is no mention of bronchial asthma. In fact, the summary states lung examination, oxygen saturation, and chest imaging are entirely normal and only mentions seasonal allergies and sinus congestion. And if we go back 2 years ago to Biden's 2019 health summary, Dr. O'Connor writes, "As often seen in patients who have significant allergies, this patient experienced exercise-induced asthma as a teenager and young adult. This has resulted in no sequelae, other than perhaps experiencing bronchospasm, with the occasional respiratory infections that all of us experience." In other words, Joe Biden had asthma as a young man, which was like 100 years ago, but as an adult, he does not. And as Dr. O'Connor wrote, there are no after effects from having had asthma, except maybe bronchospasm, which can be caused by many things, including seasonal allergies. And for clarity, asthma is a lung disease, and Dr. O'Connor specifically states that Joe Biden has no lung disease at all now, and that chest x-rays were normal. In other words, Joe Biden does not have asthma, but he's going to keep saying that he does.
And when it came spring, it came the fall, this is the God's truth. And you get in the car, and there's a little frost on the window, turn on the windshield wiper, there'd be an oil slick. Not a joke. I have asthma, and 80% of the people who, in fact, we grew up with have asthma.
So if Joe Biden is going to insist that he has asthma, that means one of three things. A, he is lying because empathy or something. B, he meant to say he had asthma previously. Or C, he does have asthma and Dr. O'Connor is lying about Biden's health. And the fact that it could be any one of those is pretty troubling. So the day after Biden announced he has cancer, had cancer, whatever, the White House put out a statement that Joe Biden had tested positive for COVID-19. And considering that the majority of people in close orbit with Biden have already been infected, not to mention the countless members of the House and the Senate, it was just a matter of time. Now, the way that the media reacted to Joe Biden catching COVID versus when President Trump contracted COVID is notable.
We know he has an infection with this coronavirus. We know that infection, that coronavirus can be very contagious, which is why people, take great pains to protect themselves in the hospital. But this is obviously sending a very different,
takes it off,
an incorrect message.
And you see him here, he takes it off and he's getting ready for his pictures. The flags flank him. Right, Caitlin, this is what he did. This is the moment. This is what he produced it for. He wants the image to be, I'm strong. This virus is nothing. His tweet today, feeling better than I did 20 years ago. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life.
21 months later.
President Biden shared an update on how he's feeling after testing positive for COVID this morning.
Hey folks, guess you heard this morning I tested positive for COVID. But I've been double vaccinated, double boosted. Symptoms are mild, and I really appreciate your inquiries and your concerns. But I'm doing well. I'm getting a lot of work done. I'm going to continue to get it done. And in the meantime, thanks for your concern and keep the faith. It's going to be okay.
Are you as optimistic about the president's prognosis as he and the White House staff are?
I am quite optimistic.
So you see the difference, right? When Trump was trying to project strength, he was lambasted. But when Joe Biden did the same thing, the same balcony even,
President Biden is isolating in the White House residence after having tested positive for coronavirus earlier today. The president put out this message on Twitter, assuring the American people he is doing peachy.
He's doing peachy, guys. It's perfectly fine for Biden to be outside not wearing a mask. But when President Trump did it,
the president, in that Sunset Boulevard gesture, whipped his mask off in front of the American people on the nightly news last night. So, as a doctor whose job it is, take it off. Please, don't even put it on the screen. Please take it off. Because that's going to kill people.
So let me get this straight. Joe Biden making a video talking about COVID just hours after he tested positive is completely normal. But when Trump made a video talking about COVID several days after he was diagnosed,
how is it that the president of the United States, who has this disease, it is contagious and it is deadly, is out there making a video and possibly infecting other people? It's wrong on every level, medical, moral, you name it.
The hypocrisy is incredible, right? I know you're shocked. Anyway, let's stop with the comparisons and talk about the White House response, which is an absolute show. The president's doctor, Kevin O'Connor, released a letter stating that Biden was experiencing minor symptoms and laid out the treatment he was undergoing. And a few hours later, the White House held a press conference.
I spoke to the president earlier. I also spoke at length with Dr. O'Connor, who is the president's personal physician. And I'm happy to share the readout of these conversations with you, and then I'm happy to take questions.
That's Dr. Ashish Jha, the White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator. More importantly, he is not Joe Biden's doctor.
Could we get the president's physician here so that we can not play the game of telephone?
I don't think this is a game of telephone. You have Dr. Jha, who is a medical doctor himself, who runs our COVID-19 response. You're going to hear regularly to a statement from Dr. O'Connor. And so we are going to be as transparent as we are going to be transparent as we have been. We put out a statement this morning. We put out a letter from Dr. O'Connor. You have both of us here taking your questions.
Unless it's now Dr. Karine Jean-Pierre and she is personally treating him, the press would rather take questions from Biden's actual doctor, because otherwise it looks like they're hiding something.
Let me follow on Dr. O'Connor. Neither of you has seen the president today. Neither of you is treating the president. The question is, when will Dr. O'Connor come out? Because to just put out a statement and shield him from questions would be the least transparency of any White House in 50 years on a presidential illness.
Wow, I wholeheartedly disagree on your last statement. Wholeheartedly disagree on your last statement. So we are doing this very differently that I would argue than the last administration. And I'm happy to have that conversation with you.
Well, she's right about one thing. The Biden administration is in fact doing this very differently than the last administration. Because when President Trump contracted COVID and was admitted to Walter Reed Hospital, the physician to the president, Sean Conley, held daily press conferences and spoke directly with members of the media. And instead of getting access to Biden's physician, the White House is passing on a letter to the press and then having the press secretary read it out loud.
So first, I wanted to read you the letter from the president's physician updating you on the president's health.
How is reading a letter to reporters who have already read the letter previously informational in any way? Well, it's not.
Why are we not hearing from Dr. O'Connor on this? I understand that you've released statements from him, but yesterday we had a difficult time comparing the description of the symptom progression from Dr. O'Connor's letter versus how you all laid it out in the briefing room. And then Dr. Jha, you did some interviews this morning, but your last update from the president was at 10 o'clock the night before.
Well, a couple of hours ago, right at 11 o'clock, you got a detailed letter from Dr. O'Connor. We've given you two detailed letters from Dr. O'Connor, and you've heard directly from him. Look, yes, you have. You've heard from the letter that is hearing directly from him. We're not playing telephone here. You're hearing directly from the physician. Yes, it is. I mean, that is hearing directly from, in his words. In his words, you are hearing directly from Dr. O'Connor, as I read out.
And yet, unsurprisingly, Karine Jean-Pierre and Dr. Jha weren't able to answer basic questions.
Can we just have the most updated number, the most updated temperature from today that the president was experiencing? What temperature did he record this morning?
I don't know that.
Well, gee, if only Biden's doctor was in the room, maybe we could get these questions answered.
You don't think there would be additional value, even just for assuring the public and giving the press the opportunity to ask follow-up questions indirectly?
No, I hear you. We are assuring the public. We've been here now, 45 minutes talking to all of you. We were here an hour talking to all of you, answering questions, fielding questions. And to be quite honest, there's nothing, we don't believe, and Dr. O'Connor believes, there's nothing more that he could add to what's already in his report.
So if we're not going to learn anything beyond what the doctor wrote in his report, then what's the point of holding a press conference? This whole thing is stupid. But then again, we did get this gem.
He ate his breakfast and lunch. He actually showed me his plate. Didn't ask about the menu, but I did see an empty plate with crumbs, and I have some guesses about what was there, but didn't ask.
So regarding the plate, Dr. Jha, did it happen to look like this? You gotta love that they're treating Biden like a f***ing toddler. Show us your plate, Joey. And the good news is, since Biden cleaned his plate, he gets ice cream for dessert. Good boy, Joey. Anyway, I think that's it for now. Be sure to hit that like button, check out these videos that you probably missed, and as always, be sure that you're still subscribed to the channel, and hope to see you next time. If there is next time.